I braced myself for Hangry, genuinely thought I'd be unbearable to live with. Everyone's got a fasting and mood horror story. The snapping, the crashes, the don't talk to me before I've eaten. I fully expected to become that person. The average numbers, mood on fasting days versus eating days, and which one's actually higher, which might surprise you. Why Hangry isn't really about hunger at all, once you look at what's happening to blood sugar. The one day the log genuinely did dip, because pretending it never happened isn't honest either. I've believed some versions of eat little and often keep the engine ticking over, never let yourself get hungry for most of my life. It's not even really NHS guidance, more just the water everyone swims in. 6 small meals a day, snack before you're starving, don't skip breakfast, whatever you do. Tim Spector's got a nice line for this. Eating like a cow. He calls it constant grazing, never really stopping. Sarah Berry, when someone puts it to her, just admitted it outright. I certainly eat like a cow. That was me, for decades. Made sense at the time, and it's not stupid advice exactly. Little and often keeps blood sugar from swinging wildly in theory. Problem is, it also keeps insulin elevated pretty much all day. Never gives your gut a proper rest and never lets the metabolic switch flip from burning what you just ate to burning what you're storing. Lions don't eat like that. Big kill, then nothing for a day or two. Turns out that pattern's rather better for metabolic health than the constantly grazing one, which is an odd thing to have to learn at 53. Jesse Inchip, biochemist, wrote Glucose Revolution, has a piece of research that stuck with me. A 2011 Yale study, brain scans, and when blood glucose crashes after a spike, the brain's craving centre lights up. Not, you're hungry, you need sugar, now. Tim Spector ran his own version of this 24 hours. One muffin and the blood sugar spike alone caused measurable cognitive impairment and mood collapse. Not from missing a meal, from the spike itself and the crash that follows it. So the question I never actually asked myself for about 25 years is, hangry, hunger, or is it withdrawal? Age 5, 1978, GP's advice for a hyperactive kid, can of Coke a day, keeps the doctor away. I'm not making up, that was the actual guidance. By 16, a can had become 6 litres a day of full fat, not diet. Hyperactive, wound tight, all over the place. My own mum's words, not mine. Nobody clocked it as a blood sugar pattern, everyone clocked it as personality. Quit Coke properly in my 30s. Felt like a genuine win at the time, then within weeks, sweets, then biscuits, then puddings became a fairly permanent fixture. The addiction didn't leave, it just changed its outfit. Same wiring, different fuel. 25 odd years of that. Never once tested the opposite, never went a stretch without food and checked what actually happened to my mood, because the assumption was baked in. No food, no fuel, no you. I'd have told you with total confidence that skipping meals made me a nightmare to be around. I never actually checked. No dramatic date on this one, which feels worth saying plainly. Somewhere into the journey. I had done it partly in 2024, but certainly from the second week of 2025, I started logging mood every single day, not just on fasting days, every day. Fasting days, eating days, good days, rubbish days. It wasn't a decision to fix anything. I figured I ought to actually check whether the hangry fear held up, instead of just repeating it to myself and what I'd always assumed. 295 days that I tracked in 2025. 252 fasting days, average mood was 7.9 out of 10. Average mood on eating days, stretching across that, was 8.4. So fasting loses, on paper, lower number. Except that's not the whole story. And it's the bit that surprised me. Look at the volatility. Not just the average. Eating day swings from about 4 to a 9. Day-to-day meal, post-meal slumps, sugar crashes, mid-afternoon. Fasting days, a tight, boring band, mostly 7 and 8s. No crashes, no swings. Across the entire 295-day dataset, the overall average sat at 8.2, which tells you that eating day volatility was dragging the mood scores around more than the fasting days ever did. Stable 7.9 beats volatile 8.4. It's not a typo and it's not a spin. It's just what happens when you stop measuring the peak and start measuring the whole line. And I'm not going to pretend it was flat all the way through, because it wasn't. Day 4 of a fast, October 25, 4 hours sleep the night before, mood that day 6 out of 10. The lowest fasting number in the entire dataset. Worth being precise about what actually caused that dip though, because it wasn't the fast, it was the sleep. Same pattern shows up every time. Poor sleep and fasting stack on the same day. Take the sleep away and the fasting day on their own barely move. One dip, one specific cause, and it's not just the one that everyone assumes. I spent 18 years running my own business. I know how to build a system that works without you having to think about it every day. Turns out the same logic applies to your health. That's what this channel documents, what actually compounds when you get the inputs right. Subscribe if that's going to be of interest to you. What the data suggests, in my case, one person, 295 days, a glucose meter and a mood log. Not a clinical trial. The mood dip that I was so sure fasting would cause never really showed up. What showed up instead was less volatility. Not because I got better at coping, because the spikes and crashes I'd been calling just how I am mostly weren't there to begin with. When conventional advice still applies, this isn't a blanket. Everyone should stop eating regularly. If you're on insulin or any glucose lowering medication, or you've got a history of hyperglycemia, skipping meals isn't a mood experiment. It's a medical one, and it needs your GP involved before you touch it. Little and often exists for good reason in plenty of situations. This is about whether it's true for everyone, not whether it's ever true. If you're not on any medication, not in that conversation yet, but you notice your own mood swinging hard around meals, it's always worth raising. Sugar cravings can be loud, really loud. Loud enough that you assume it's just your personality, the way I did for 25 years, rather than a pattern worth a proper look before it turns into something bigger. If you want to actually try tightening your eating window without the guesswork, the 14-day rhythm reset guide walks through exactly how. The link's in the description. This is educational content only. This isn't medical advice. If you're on medication that affects blood sugar, or you've got any condition where skipping meals carries a real risk, that's a GP conversation. It's not a YouTube comment one.